Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
It's Friday, May 20th, 2020, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this is The Gateway. I'm Rachel Littman, in for Wayne Pratt. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has recommended that children between the ages of 5 and 11 who received the Pfizer vaccine get a booster. Younger kids would be eligible for the third shot if they have received their second dose more than 5 months ago. Research by Pfizer and BioNTech shows the booster helps protect against the original coronavirus and the Omicron variant. Less than 30% of children between 5 and 11 are considered fully vaccinated against the coronavirus nationwide. In Missouri, that number is less than 20%. Illinois is doing a little better. 36% of younger children there are fully vaccinated. The announcement of booster eligibility for 5 through 11-year-olds comes as the United States passes 1 million dead from COVID and cases surge once again. The daily average of cases has more than tripled since March to more than 100,000, and that number is almost certainly an undercount. The coronavirus numbers in St. Louis mirror what is happening in the rest of the country. As St. Louis Public Radio's Shayla Farzan reports, COVID-related hospitalizations remain low across the region, despite high transmission rates.
The number of new COVID-19 cases across the St. Louis area has been rising steadily over the past 6 weeks. In the city of St. Louis, coronavirus transmission levels are high, based on federal thresholds from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Transmission is categorized as high when there are more than 100 new cases per 100,000 residents in a single week. Cases are also increasing in St. Louis County, which has seen a 30% rise in new cases in the past week, based on data from the county health department. State health officials report the vast majority of cases in Missouri are now linked to the highly contagious BA2 Omicron subvariant. I'm Shayla Farzan, St. Louis Public Radio.
About 3,800 people in the St. Louis area are still without power after a line of severe storms passed through the area on Thursday. The National Weather Service says at least one weak tornado touched down around 5 p.m. in Kirkwood near the Westboro Country Club. Forecasters say it was on the ground for about 3 miles, lifting near the old Warson Country Club. Initial measures say the tornado was an EF0 with peak winds of 80 miles per hour. It caused no damage to buildings, but did topple trees, including onto a car. Interstate 55 at Loughborough near the city limits was closed due to flooding. And the St. Louis Fire Department tweeted several reports of vehicles trapped in flash floods on city streets. There were no initial reports of injuries due to the weather. The Missouri Supreme Court has rejected the request of Mark and Patricia McCloskey, the St. Louis lawyers who brandished guns at Black Lives Matter protesters in 2020, to provide free legal services to a right-wing media group as a condition of their probation. Dan Margulies of KCUR reports.
Earlier this year, the court placed the McCloskeys on probation for their conduct during the protest. As a condition of their probation, they're required to provide 100 hours of pro bono work to groups that offer legal services to poor Missourians. The McCloskeys offered to work for Project Veritas, which purports to expose left-wing bias through undercover work. But the Supreme Court said Project Veritas did not qualify. Mark McCloskey said the court only ruled that way because it regards Project Veritas as a right-wing group.
I'm sure there's entities that are opposing critical race theory, for example. I'll see if I can work for one of those organizations. I'm sure the Supreme Court won't like that either.
McCloskey is seeking the GOP nomination for a U.S. Senate seat in Missouri. I'm Dan Margulies.
Vice President Kamala Harris said Thursday, during a virtual meeting with abortion providers, that if Roe v. Wade is overturned, all Americans will be affected by that decision. Harris spoke with the head of the St. Louis area Planned Parenthood, other doctors, and abortion advocates. She says allowing states to end access to abortion would be a disaster.
It would be a direct assault on the fundamental right to self-determination, to live and love without interference from the government.
Harris says the country's strength has always been expanding rights for people, not restricting them. She says she wants to make sure women across the nation have access to the health care they need. Coming up in the region today, Vice President Harris's husband, Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff, will speak at the Women's Power Lunch in Chicago. Missouri Governor Mike Parson will be at the opening ceremonies of the state summer games for the Special Olympics. The competition for individuals with intellectual disabilities takes place this weekend in Columbia. The St. Louis Board of Aldermen will honor one of the founders of 100 Black Men of metropolitan St. Louis. Jesse Swanigan helped found the civic organization in 1983 with the stated goal of helping Black men leverage their talent to improve their community. And given that it's Friday, which in some offices means the chance to wear more casual outfits to work, it's fitting that on this date 149 years ago, Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis got their patent to create blue jeans. Shula Newman is the executive editor of St. Louis Public Radio, a service of the University of Missouri-St. Louis. The music you hear on the podcast is by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Rachel Lippman. Thanks for listening.
The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.